Why Comedians Are So Good by John T. Looking back through the history of humanity, one thing is certain. We live in a constant state of peril. Comedy is often described as an escape, but it is far from. Comedians have always seemed to have a unique ability to turn the things that we hate and fear into laughter. With the power of film, we were able to make comedy mainstream. Comedians have been helping and healing humanity ever since. As humanity evolved, so did our problems, our sense of humor, and our comedians. Before sound, comedians had a very limited way in which they could express themselves, from as early as 1895 with the sprinkler sprinkled, where a kid gets a dumb guy wet with a water hose. Comedians on film had to rely on physicality to get their jokes across. Being able to make moving funny became comedy film. And the 1920s and 30s were dominated by the physical genius of comedians like Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, and Charlie Chaplin. But when sound came, it became very apparent that comedians didn't just move funny or play camera tricks. They had opinions, good opinions that we wanted to hear. Physical comedians soon became a thing of the past to be replaced by witty dialogue. The funniest part is, silent film stars were the ones who changed it. The Marx Brothers made a film in 1933 titled Duck Soup, and although the silly movements were still there, it was remembered for its wit, comedic writing, and because it was a political anti-war satire. In 1940, Charlie Chaplin made the film The Great Dictator, which might just be the most courageous film that was ever made. He took the scariest thing on the planet, spoke out against it, made it hilarious, and ended the film with a speech of unity and love that rivals any speech that I have ever heard. Listening to that speech, it is obvious that the thing Charlie wanted the most was peace, and he was willing to stand up against the greatest evil in the world to get it. The Three Stooges also made an anti-fascism film titled You Nasty Spy in 1940, which landed them on Hitler's death list. These films came out about a year before America even entered the war. Hitler was at the top of his power, and nothing would have been scarier than speaking out against him. But the people were scared and comedians felt they had a job to do. We had come a very long way from comedians making us feel better about getting sprayed with water or falling off a ladder. Now they were helping us laugh at the immense fear that the world was at war, one that I'm sure people knew they would be involved in very soon. In the 1950s, the magic of television began, and comedians were now in our living rooms. Naturally, they started dealing with living room problems. Shows like I Love Lucy and The Honeymooners began making Americans aware of our issues with women's rights and domestic abuse, and they helped us laugh at our sexism while we began to understand it. The addition of color to the TV between the late 50s and into the 60s came at the perfect time in history, the same time period as the civil rights movement, when black people were stepping up and letting us know that freedom from slavery was not freedom. And of course, comedians were there to inform and entertain us. In 1969, Mr. Rogers aired an episode where he shared a pool with a black man and a towel. And you might not call him a comedian, but what's the real difference between making me laugh and making me smile? In 1971, All in the Family aired a Christmas special where a black man comes dressed as Santa. And of course, Archie isn't happy about it. You can't have a black Santa! But through the course of the episode, the family shows Archie the error of his ways, and in the end, love wins. The start of the episode was a perfect reflection of the current state of racism. Something that felt as small and trivial as this weird notion we have that a made-up character has to be white, and through watching Archie grow as a person, we ourselves get to see how ridiculous we are being, and we get closer to setting down this pride that we love so much. In the 70s and 80s, sketch comedy and stand-up finally became popular to mainstream audience and television. This was a great win for comedians because it was easy, and it gave them the greatest range to express themselves. Sketch comedy shows like SNL allowed comedians to build a scene, express themselves, and then tear it down to make room for the next one. Without the need to stay canon from episode to episode, SNL had the ability to tackle every issue that humanity had, and stand-up allowed comedians to do exactly what they really wanted to do. To walk into your living room and just tell you what they think. George Carlin helped us understand that kicking ass in World War II and defeating communism did not make us good people, and it certainly did not make our leaders good people. We still had problems and plenty of room to grow. Richard Pryor's brutal honesty about his drug problem helped people without a drug addiction understand. And by forcing us to love him, he forced us to accept that drug addicts are people too, and they deserve love, respect, and help. I believe this change in attitude then is why so many people now are choosing careers that help drug addicts, even though they themselves are not. And today, sketch show and stand-up comedians are still pushing the boundaries on the way we look at right and wrong. Daniel Tosh is a comedian who is constantly breaking any facade we have that we have become fixed. Society on a whole today seems to think we have escaped racism, sexism, or gender inequality. But black people are still marching in the street because there's no escape from poverty, nor do we as a people even recognize their personal struggle in it. Women are still marching in the street because this is about so much more than the right to vote or an amount of money. Women are still trying to tell us what the problems are, and we are still just saying, wow, overreacting is such a woman thing to do. And comedians are here to continue to tell us that we're wrong, and we need that. Because as soon as we start thinking we're good, we stop growing, and we are very, very far from being good. Truly, laughter is the best medicine, and we have comedians to thank for that.